We are starting this deep dive today, not with, a stack of papers, but with a sudden jarring experience of total transportation failure. So just picture the scene. You're on a train, you're heading through northern France, approaching this little town called Gisors, and just a tremendous jolt.
Yeah, horrible screech of metal on metal.
And the locomotive, this huge piece of iron machinery, is just lying there, crippled across the track, totally defeated.
It's wheezing, gasping, whistling and shivering. The flank is beating like a fallen horse.
Yeah.
A single broken wheel just brings the whole thing to a halt.
It's total unplanned chaos.
Yeah.
And it forces our traveler, our narrator, off the train and back toward the nearest town just to find food and a place to stay.
And that necessity leads to this accidental reunion. That's really the core of our dive today. He realizes an old friend, a Dr. Albert Maupassant, practices medicine right there in Gisors.
A friend he hasn't seen in more than a decade. And the reunion. It's less of a warm embrace and more of a profound shock.
Right. The man he remembers is just gone. In his place is someone, thickened, heavier, flushed cheeks. He looks 45, even though he's younger.
And you can see the character of provincial life just stamped all over him. You don't even need to ask Maupassant about what he does. You know his priorities just from looking at him.
Long, heavy meals.
Yep. The immediate post-dinner nap and this overwhelming sense of contentment that is rooted entirely in heavy digestion.
His whole world Gisors reflected right there in him. And that's our mission today. We're diving deep into the character of this small town as it's revealed by Maupassant's personality and this incredible local legend he tells.
A true story of virtue and, let's face it, hypocrisy that explains why the town's nickname for a staggering drunkard is the rosebush of Madame Husson.
It's an amazing story.
Okay, so let's unpack this provincial philosophy because Maupassant wastes absolutely no time. After that initial shock of recognition, his very first concern isn't, how have you been?
Not at all.
It's about feeding his friend. He just blurts out, "You haven't had lunch, have you? What luck? I'm sitting down now and I have an excellent trout."
It immediately establishes his worldview. Food is everything. It is not just sustenance for Maupassant, it is like his religion.
He immediately launches into this philosophical defense of gluttony.
He does. He says that only imbeciles lack appreciation for fine food. He argues that taste is this delicate, respectable organ that can be perfected, just like the eye or the ear.
So is that real dedication, or is it just profound narcissism wrapped up in local pride? I mean, he's elevating his own enjoyment to an intellectual pursuit.
Oh, completely. He explicitly links a lack of refined taste to a lack of cultural intelligence.
How does he do that?
He makes this direct comparison that's very revealing. He says that a person who can't tell a simple herring from a refined lobster is just like someone who confuses great literature with trashy fiction.
Or a Beethoven symphony with a military march.
Exactly. For Maupassant, eating well reflects breeding and intelligence. It's a high art.
And he backs it up with this obsessive detail. He insists his guests try the soft-boiled eggs wrapped in this savory, herb-infused aspic jelly.
And he explains his whole system. He has 2 separate courtyards, one for eggs, one for poultry, and he personally oversees what his hens are fed.
Because he genuinely believes you should be able to taste the quintessence of the animal's prior nourishment in the final dish.
It's an incredibly intense focus, but it's all directed inward, toward his own stomach and his own little domain. And this hyper-focused self-interest is exactly what connects to his fierce defense of his region.
Right. The narrator calls it l'esprit de clocher parochialisme, the spirit of the bell tower.
But Maupassant calls it natural patriotism.
The argument is basically, I love my home, so I am a patriot. But he doesn't just love Gisors, he defends Gisors, especially against what he calls the hereditary enemy, the English.
And this pride, it manifests in really strange ways. They're proud of the physical beauty, sure, the fortress, the valley, the Norman cows, but then you look at their historical obsessions.
They needed a famous historical figure, so they just discovered one, a General de Blancmont.
They manufactured a hero because they needed one.
It shows this deep-seated anxiety about whether they're important enough, which is why the town's booksellers are just overflowing with local histories. Maupassant points out titles like Gisors, its origins, its future.
The glories of Gisors. I mean, he confirms they have 23 separate published histories of this one small town.
23 histories. That level of obsession shows a community that is desperate to justify its own existence. And that same drive to manufacture glory is what led them to try and manufacture virtue.
Which brings us to the legend itself.
As they're walking through the street, a figure appears. A man just staggering wildly, completely drunk, arms swinging, bumping into a house. It's a sad sight. But Maramba just points casually and says, "There's the rosebush of Madame Husson."
And that nickname, that one piece of local slang, it tells us everything. It starts with the woman who wanted to clean up geysers, Madame Husson.
She was small, quick-trotting, and just intensely virtuous. She was especially hostile to what the church calls luxure, which, in this context, really just means illicit relationships.
So she gets this idea to start a local tradition, a rosière competition, to crown the most virtuous, untainted girl in the region.
But her standard is impossibly high. She demands absolute, unassailable purity. And her servant, this tough old woman named Françoise, is put in charge of vetting all the candidates.
And Françoise, she's the true moral barometer of Gisors. Her method of investigation is just pure small-town gold.
It's amazing.
She documents every piece of local gossip, every pertin, right there in her kitchen ledger, next to the price of milk and bread. She is literally using the town's rumors as the official record of sin.
It is hilarious and so deeply dark at the same time. You can just imagine Madame Husson reviewing these ledger entries. Bread, 4 sous. Milk, 2 sous. Melvina Levesque was disturbed last year with Matouan Poilu.
Disturbed, that's all it takes.
And the list just goes on.
Rosalie Vatinelle was seen in Riboudet Wood with Césaire Piennoir at dusk. And my favorite, which just perfectly captures the paranoia, Josephine Durdon, not believed to have sinned, notwithstanding that she is in correspondence with the lucky boy in Rouen who sent her a hat.
A hat. A gifted hat is enough to disqualify you.
It is. That's the definition of virtue in Gisors. The rosière, like Caesar's wife, must not even be suspected.
So the town's own reputation for gossip, their own deep flaws, made the whole process impossible.
Exactly. Not a single girl in the entire region survived Françoise's scrutiny. Madame Husson is just desolate. Her grand plan is collapsing because reality can't match the purity she requires.
And that's when Françoise, the pragmatist, suggests the unthinkable.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to crown someone, she says, there's only Isidore in the entire region.
Isidore, the son of Virginie, the fruit seller. He's over 20, tall, really awkward, and just profoundly shy. His virtue isn't from strength or conviction.
No, it's from an actual pathological fear of skirts.
He avoids everyone and everything. He spends his days inside, just peeling vegetables.
So he's virtuous by complete and total isolation. He's so famously timid that one of the doctors had already nicknamed him the thermometer of modesty because local boys could just yell obscenities at him and watch him blush and run away.
He is the ultimate symbol of avoidance. Madame Husson is a little taken aback by crowning a male rosier, but the local priest, Abbé Malou, steps in.
And he has the crucial theological argument.
He reasons that virtue itself is eternal. It has no sex. So the mayor, seeing a chance to boost public morale and, set an example, he approves.
And just like that, the target of all this mockery, Isidore, is instantly transformed. He's ridiculed chastity is suddenly respectable. It's envied.
Because it means 500 gold francs, a savings book, and real status. The public perception of him just flips 180 degrees overnight.
He went from being the town joke to the town hero. The town, desperate for a pure symbol to parade around, finally had one.
The coronation is set for August 15th, and they spare no expense.
It is full-blown pageantry. The streets are strewn with flowers, like it's a major religious procession. The National Guard is called out. The elite grenadiers of Gisors, led by Commander Debars, an old veteran of Napoleon's army.
The guy with the huge Cossack's beard he claims to have hacked off a defeated Russian soldier.
That's the one. The whole spectacle is designed to project power and manufactured history. And in the center of it all is Isidore.
Dressed head to toe in this ridiculously pristine white duck suit, which Françoise chose because she thought it made him look like a swan. And he's wearing a straw hat with white orange blossoms.
The symbol of purity. He is a walking, breathing symbol of the town's impossible aspirations. The mayor gives this incredibly grave speech, calling Isidore the first crowned of this dynasty of wisdom and chastity.
The first seed thrown into this field of hope. I mean, think about the immense emotional weight being put on this shy, awkward, pathologically fearful young man.
He just breaks down and weeps. It's a mix of confusing emotions. Pride, joy, this vague, overwhelming tenderness at being the center of attention.
It's all just too much.
And then he's given the rewards. The silk purse with 500 gold francs and a savings book. Homage, glory, and wealth to virtue, the mayor proclaims. But that wealth, that is the key ingredient that is going to break the symbol.
Absolutely. And the immediate catalyst is the feast that follows. It's described as interminable and magnificent, just plates and plates of food, and the cider and red wine just flow without stopping.
And this is where we see the immediate, visceral consequence of his new status. Isidore, whose life was one of extreme restriction, eats and drinks more than he ever has before. He discovers the profound physical pleasure of indulgence.
Right, he's not appreciating the art of eating like Maupassant does. This is just base gluttony. He subtly loosens his trouser buckle to make more room.
And he's just sitting there silently, savoring the drink, only worried about spilling wine on that pristine white swan suit. The rigid structure of his life, which was defined by fear and avoidance, is dissolving from the inside out through simple physical excess.
The day of overwhelming public validation and overwhelming consumption has just completely undone the foundation of his so-called virtue.
By the time night falls and the party finally breaks up, Isidore is alone in his mother's shop, just utterly saturated with wine and this newfound pride. The air is thick, mixing the rough scents of cabbages and carrots with the sweet and penetrating smell of strawberries and the faint perfume of peaches.
And despite being painfully full, the gluttony has taken hold. He grabs a peach and eats it greedily. And then he feels the weight in his pocket. He'd forgotten about the 500 francs.
It's the sound of freedom.
He frantically spreads the 25 gold coins out on the counter, and the story explicitly describes the terrible combat fought in his soul, this sudden tumultuous attack of Satan, as the sheer potential of that unearned wealth and freedom just washes over him.
It wasn't a philosophical choice. It was the noise of freedom. The clink of those gold coins was the sound of every single constraint in his life shattering.
And the battle is swift.
He grabs his hat, still bearing those ridiculous orange blossoms of purity, and vanishes into the night through the back alley.
The shock the next morning is immediate. His mother is crying among the vegetables. The authorities refuse to believe he left on his own. They find the orange blossom bouquet on the Pontoise Road and conclude he must have been the victim of a ruse or a machination.
They can't comprehend that their cherished, manufactured symbol shows degradation.
But the truth comes back the next evening. The Paris coach returns, and the driver reports that Gisor's celebrated rosier stopped the coach, paid his fare with a new gold coin, and quietly got off right in the heart of the great city.
He had run away with a reward for virtue, but jettisoned the virtue itself.
And his return is horrific. Days later, Dr. Barbasol, the guy who nominated him, finds him asleep against a doorway. Isidore is described as profoundly, unconquerably, alarmingly drunk.
And hidden beneath him, an empty brandy bottle.
The physical transformation is complete. After 8 days of relentless drunkenness, his white swan suit is now a gray, greasy, filthy, ignoble rag.
He's totally debased. He smells of sewer, gutter, and vice. He's lost everything. The 500 francs, the savings book, even his father's silver watch.
And the humiliation, the lecturing. It did nothing. He had lost his shame entirely. He was eventually chased away by his mother, forced to work as a coal cart driver, but the pattern was set.
The structure of avoidance was gone forever. Within 2 hours of going out for the first time, he was back in the street, giggling and bumping into walls, completely hopelessly drunk.
His infamy spread. The story went all the way to Evreux. His nickname, the rosebush of Madame Husson, became the generic local term for a drunkard,
ensuring his legacy as a spectacular failure of manufactured virtue. Maupassant confirms that the man they saw staggering in the street eventually died from delirium tremens.
It's such a tragic footnote to the town's pride, and Maupassant is pleased with this story, of course, because he ties it all back to his other obsession, the military history of Gisors and its battles with the English. He concludes, "What scoundrels these English, and what drunkards, my dear. All rosiers, those hypocrites."
What a profound irony. Gisors, a town obsessed with proving its own greatness, manufacturing heroes, scrutinizing every girl's mail, ultimately succeeded only in creating the region's most infamous and enduring symbol of vice.
They rewarded the absence of sin, not the presence of genuine moral strength. They wanted a symbol so desperately they chose the one candidate defined by fear and restriction. And when that restriction was removed by public pride and sudden wealth, that delicate virtue just dissolved into base excess.
The town got exactly what it demanded. A perfect, fragile symbol, which shattered upon contact with the real world, leaving behind a catastrophe.
It really makes you consider the power of sudden, large wealth on a life that was built entirely on restrictive routine. When 500 gold francs offered freedom, was Isidore truly choosing vice? Or was he simply choosing to escape the suffocating expectations that earned him the money in the first place? Maybe the wine and the money didn't turn him into a drunkard. Maybe they just gave him permission to stop being a ghost.